recording?
Yeah.
Not yet, not yet. Да.
Okay. Do I introduce myself or you will do it?
You.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Zeljka Jovanovac. I'm a teacher in elementary school DAL for 17 years. I'm teaching history and Croatian language and working with children. I choose this method, mind mapping, which I will be talking in my work. Mind mapping in working with children with disabilities or with difficulties in learning. I will share my screen with presentation. I hope you will enjoy it. Okay, so as I said, my work is mind mapping in working with children with disabilities. For 17 years, as I work as a teacher, I saw many methods that will try to use to learn the children with disabilities. And this method for me is showing as the best method. I will start with the teacher in new age. I think this crisis age is a really new age, is everything new. The role of the teacher in teaching is to make students capable of individuals for further action in society. It is our missions, okay. But modern learning is essential for generations growing up in the digital world. Students of digital generations also need to accept that knowledge is a power. Knowledge is what contributes to a better society and world today. We need to encourage students to contribute to a better world with their knowledge and digital skills. So the mind mapping, as the name of my work, is mind mapping in working with children with learning disabilities. During the years in work with the children which have learning disabilities, I try to find many ways to make it easier to adopt and allow better progress. Every time when I try to teach in history, I have come across many obstacles in the participation and I decided to look for alternative methods. After I ended the education mind mapping, I decided to apply in my class. I teach in history, so my subject is easy and creative to use these methods. I'll be surprised how the children accept these methods and how they react. Some of them doesn't want to learn with the classic methods, linear learning, only on this way, mind mapping. The symbols and associations enable the children adopt much more materials and facts. In subject history, the considerable difficulty for children is memorable years. That problem we solved with a mental hook. The symbols which children reminds of subject from their environment, from which they recognize the number, allow them long-term memory years. Of course, Tony Buzan, it's a general person who developed a method of creating mind maps in 1970s in London. He is author of the best-selling books, Being a Genius, The Power of Mind, How to Make Mental Maps for Kids, The Power of Spiritual Intelligence, The Power of Creative Intelligence. So he concluded that lecturers transfer knowledge and information in a way that is not natural for the brain. as a fact is how to make a good mind map. You have 7 steps in making mind maps. First, you have marked the central thought with a picture. Then use a color. Then underline the key terms in the text in advance. Agree on common symbols. Compose the symbol legend. Use pictures when making mind maps and write only one word on the line. It's difficult at the beginning, but it's funny when you start to learn. Tony Buzan said something about the left and right hemispheres of the brain. It is important to know that the left and right hemispheres of the brain are not responsible for the same work. The left hemisphere of the brain, which is also called academic, is in charge of reading, writing, numbers, logic. But during the education, we mainly use the left side of the brain, this academic, but not the right. It's a creativity hemisphere. When I start with the mind mapping, I told my students these stories. It calls The Impossible Dream, the story of Edward Hughes. What is important in this story? It's a message. I will say that in the end. So this story starts in 1982. 50-year-old boy of average ability, not particularly good in any subject, with desire to study at the University of Cambridge. He took the level 0 test. The results were devastating. So he met the book, Use Your Head, and he discovered a method to help him learn the mind map. He announced at school that he was getting A is all in all subject. It was something what their teachers doesn't believe. So disbelief and ridicule among teachers, negative attitude of the whole school. No one can believe that Edward get A. Edward had a goal, get an A. He created mind maps for each subject and updated them every week. It improved understanding and memory. His exam results was only grades A and a ranking of the best student. He enrolled in desired university. He still used the method of mind map in his studies. He graduated as the best student in his class. So the message of the end of these stories is everyone can be successful. That's what I want to say to my students. Everyone can be successful. Everyone have a right for successful. But in this new age, we have education crisis. The peak of the crisis caused by the COVID-19 pandemic caused almost 1.6 billion students around the world in the 195 states could not use their classrooms. It was stressed. Schools were for the most part closed, and students denied educational opportunities, which has left long-term social and economic consequences. Student teaching has been transformed through the internet in the form of the online learning as alternative approach to education. The primary goal of this paper is to investigate online learning in the world caused by the coronavirus pandemic and to identify the differences of individual countries around the world about tools, platforms, and applications. That was the challenges and perspectives. Primary and secondary data sources were used. To my students, I couldn't drawing in class, so we used the tools it calls Google. It's tools for make mind maps. This is some of the examples which we are doing when the online education work. It's a simple, but it was easier for them to learn. While working in teaching as a subject teacher, I encountered difficulties with the methods and ways of working with children with disabilities. Mind mapping was a challenge to apply in teaching the first year of working with this strategy. Learning is a complex process, so that involves the acquisitions of information, habits, knowledge, skills, and abilities, and storing them in our memory. And while a number of children learn without difficulty and independently, a large number of them react to the very mention of learning with resistance, finding hundreds of excuses for dealing and avoiding it. Sometimes the cause lies in themselves, but some children learn with considerable difficulty despite great effort. One of the causes of such learning difficulties may be underdeveloped learning strategies. So for each student with disabilities, it is necessary to investigate tasks that will enable him to participate in all activities, so that he can or she can achieve the set outcomes. Before performing activities from the teaching scenario, it's important to ensure some prerequisites such as a special adjustment of classroom space and workspace and temporal adjustment of activities in the scenario in relation to the abilities and difficulties of students in the classroom. The upbringing and education of students is based on the principle of accepting the diversity of students, accepting different phases of student development, providing conditions and support for achieving maximum development of the potential of each individual student, equalizing opportunities to achieve the highest possible level of education, his place of residence. One of the strategies that has proven to be a valuable learning tool in practice for both children with learning difficulties and children without disabilities is the use of mind maps. The mapping method has proven to be an excellent tool in overcoming difficulties in understanding, remembering, and learning in general. Mind maps respect the natural principles of memorization and use the abilities of both hemispheres of the brain, with the emphasis of the right creative hemisphere of the brain. Names still in use. Mind maps, mental maps, cognitive maps, it doesn't matter, it's still the same method. Application of mind maps in classroom. Mind maps can be used for all subjects that the children has difficulty mastering. During the process of learning and studying, the amount of information in books, notebooks, and chapters can be huge. That amount can block our intentions and diminish the quality of learning or the ability to solve a problem. So, as a learning tool for children with disabilities, they have shown excellent results. The difficulties shown in this case are dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. This student, that I first used mind mapping, was a student, is bilingual. It was a girl, so her mother tongue was a Hungarian, and this made it even more difficult for her to learn and master the material. The student enters the first grade without knowledge of the Croatian language or very little knowledge of the Croatian language. An obstacle to successful learning to read and write is not knowing the language. The student finished the first 4 grades with good results, but when she reached the 5th grade, the student experienced her first failure. The problem is also low self-confidence And the fact that the student moves from the smaller environment to larger one, from the place of resistance, from the district school, the student comes to school by school bus. So temporary migration from the place of resistance and the transition of the 5th grade are extremely stressful for students, and even more stressful for students with reduced self-confidence. The students shows signs of antisocial behavior, separated and not accepted by others. Students find it difficult to master even less demanding material. The entire 5th grade works with the student as a team that improves her to achieve the best possible success and be accepted in the class. The team was prepared according to Article 18 of the Ordinance on Primary and Secondary Education of Students with Disabilities.
Your slide is not moving, Zeljka.
No,
No,
but I still
maybe
moving.
you can try.
Okay, I will made is now moving.
Yes.
Okay, I made all this. So this is the last slide that I was talking about. So the next is support in education. As a teacher and as a student, professional support in education of students is provided by teachers trained and educated to work with students with disabilities. Teachers or educators trained and educated to work with students in students' dormitories. Experts of educational rehabilitation profile, educational rehabilitator, speech therapist, social pedagogy, professional associate of the school, and competent school doctor. This is all the steps which every school have to do before to make better results for the students with disabilities. So for me as a teacher, it's very important that students are satisfied with their work. Since I stated that according to the philosophic finding, the difficulty of dyslexia was determinate, the student was delighted with the application of drawings in learning. The mapping student has a text in which there is not a single image because it is important to create associations to key concepts. Teaching with this tool has proven to be a successful method of learning the material in a student whose case is presented in the paper. The student has developed a successful understanding of historical continuity. The only thing that has not been applied to this student, and according to the method of Tony Bazan, smart hooks for the dyscalculia are recommended. The number are presented as characters recognizable to the children. The conclusion of using this tool is that memorizing more information is possible without much effort. Learning can be fun, so this tool allows students to remember for a long time and later to reproduce the material more easily. It does not provoke resistance to learning students. Student satisfaction after successful work is the greatest reward for children, but if for teacher. This is an example of a text form, a textbook that the student mapped. It is many informations, no pictures, so everybody, it will be lost in that. So we used mind mapping and we made something fun to learn. It was really knowledge, and my student was successful with themselves because they know much more and much easier to learn than the others. So this is two examples for mind mapping. It's 2 lessons. And I'm at the end. That's all for me. Thank you for your attention about this topic. Ermina?